Let me tell you about Marcus. Successful guy. Mid-30s, software engineer, owns his own home, built a decent portfolio, never married, met a woman, great connection. 6 months in, she's staying over most nights anyway. She suggests moving in together. It just makes sense, she says. We're basically living together already. Why pay 2 rents? Marcus thinks about it. Seems logical. Saves money. More time together. He says yes. 3 years later, the relationship ends. Nothing dramatic, they just grew apart. She moves out. And then the letter arrives. From her lawyer, claiming she's entitled to half of everything acquired during the relationship. Half the increase in his home's value, half his retirement contributions from those 3 years, spousal support while she gets back on her feet. Marcus is sitting in his living room staring at a legal document that's about to cost him $300,000, thinking, we weren't even married. Except legally, in many jurisdictions, they were. Because marriage isn't just a ceremony anymore. It's not just a piece of paper you sign. In most Western countries, marriage is now defined by behaviour, by how you live, by whether you cohabitate, share finances, present as a couple, and function as a domestic partnership. You can be legally married without ever intending to be, and Marcus just found out the hard way. Today we're going to talk about the most expensive mistake men make in modern relationships. Not cheating, not poor communication, not failing to be attentive, moving in together, cohabitation, the decision that seems practical, romantic, or financially sensible, but is actually the moment you invite the state into your bedroom, your bank account, and your future. This isn't about whether to have relationships. It's about understanding what happens legally when you cross certain thresholds, and why most men cross them without having any idea what they just did. Let me start with the information asymmetry, because this is the foundation of how men get trapped. Walk into any bookstore, go to the relationship section, you'll find dozens of books for women about protecting themselves financially, about prenuptial agreements, about understanding marital property, about ensuring financial security, about getting what you deserve in a divorce. This information is readily available, openly discussed, socially acceptable. Women are encouraged to be strategic about relationships, to think long-term, to protect their interests. Now look for the equivalent books for men. They don't exist, or if they do, they're buried. Because men aren't supposed to think strategically about relationships. Men are supposed to be romantic, to follow their heart, to prove they're not afraid of commitment, to show they trust her completely. Any man who approaches relationships strategically, who thinks about asset protection, legal consequences, exit risks, he's jaded, he's cynical, he's damaged. He's not a real man, because real men don't think about these things. This creates an asymmetry. She's been given information and encouraged to use it. He's been kept ignorant and shamed for seeking information. So when the decision to move in together comes up, she knows what it potentially means legally. He thinks it's just a practical decision about where to sleep. She might have consulted with friends who've been through this. He's winging it based on feelings. She's playing chess. He's playing checkers, and he doesn't even know the game changed. Let me explain what actually happens when you cohabitate, because this is what nobody tells you until it's too late. In most Western jurisdictions, there's something called de facto relationships or common law marriage. The terminology varies, but the principle is the same. If you live together as a couple, sharing a residence, sharing a bed, functioning as domestic partners, the law starts to treat you as married. Not might treat you, starts to treat you, automatically, without you signing anything, without you agreeing to anything. Your behaviour creates the legal status. The specific thresholds vary. In some places it's 2 years, in some places it's less. In some jurisdictions there's no minimum time requirement if you're living together and presenting as a couple. You're a de facto relationship from day one. And once you're classified as a de facto relationship, you have all the obligations of marriage with none of the conscious choice. You didn't stand in front of witnesses and make vows, but legally you might as well have. And here's the critical part. The law doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you didn't mean it that way. It doesn't care that you never wanted to be married. It doesn't care that you specifically avoided marriage to avoid these obligations. The law looks at behaviour. Do you live together? Are you sexually exclusive? Do you share expenses? Do you present as a couple socially? If yes, you're in a legally recognised relationship. And legally recognised relationships come with legal consequences. Let me describe the gradual escalation. Because this is how it actually happens. Nobody wakes up one day and thinks, I'm going to put myself in massive legal jeopardy. It happens in steps, small steps. Each one seems harmless. Each one makes sense at the time, but they accumulate into something you never intended to create. Step 1. She starts staying over more often. A few nights a week, then most nights, then all the time. She's got a drawer at your place, then a closet, then half the closet. You're not living together officially. She still has her place, but practically, functionally, she's moved in. You just haven't acknowledged it formally. Step 2. She suggests making it official. I'm here all the time anyway. I'm basically paying rent for a place I don't use. Why don't I move in? We'll split the bills. It'll save both of us money. This makes sense. Pure logic. Financial efficiency. You say yes because saying no would seem like you're not committed, like you're holding back, like you don't trust her, and you do trust her. So she moves in. Step 3. Integration. Her stuff mingles with your stuff, her furniture, her decorations. The place stops being yours and becomes ours. Bills get paid from joint accounts or split through apps. You buy groceries together, you make decisions together, you file taxes in ways that acknowledge the shared household. You function as a single economic unit, not because you planned it that way, because that's what happens when two people share a living space. Step 4. Time passes. A year, 2 years, 3 years. You're building a life together. Maybe you help her with something financially. Maybe you buy furniture together. Maybe you're considering buying property together, or she's contributing to your existing property. Maybe you talk about kids. Maybe you have kids. Every month that passes cements the relationship as a recognized partnership in the eyes of the law. And you're not thinking about the law. You're thinking about building a future. Step 5. Something happens. The relationship ends. Maybe she leaves you. Maybe you leave her. Maybe it's mutual. Doesn't matter. What matters is that when you separate, you discover that the legal system doesn't see this as a girlfriend moving out. It sees it as a marriage dissolving. And marriages don't dissolve for free. They dissolve through property division, asset splitting, and sometimes ongoing financial obligations. This is the trap. At no point did you commit fraud. At no point did you lie. At no point did you hide your intentions. You just lived with someone. And living with someone created legal consequences you never consented to because nobody told you they existed. Let me give you real examples, because some men reading this think that won't happen to me. Case law says otherwise. Australia, 2019. Man owns a home before the relationship. Woman moves in. They live together for 2 years. Relationship ends. She claims she's entitled to a portion of the home's value because they functioned as a domestic partnership. Court agrees. Grants her a significant percentage of the home he owned before she even entered his life. His ownership, his mortgage payments before and during the relationship, his down payment years before they met irrelevant. The court looked at the period they cohabitated and decided she contributed to the household in ways that entitled her to equity. Canada, 2020. Man and woman live together for 3 years. He's self-employed, high earner. She works part-time, lower income. They split. She files for spousal support. He argues they were never married. Court says common law relationship existed. Orders him to pay monthly support for years because she became economically dependent during the relationship. The fact that they never married didn't matter. The fact that he never agreed to support her long-term didn't matter. The behaviour created the obligation. United Kingdom, 2018. Couple lives together for a decade. He's wealthy, she's not. No marriage, no kids. They separate. She sues for financial provision. Court awards her a settlement in the millions because of cohabitation-based equity and the contribution she made to the household. They never signed a contract. They never stood before an officiant. They just lived together for long enough that the law decided she was entitled. These aren't edge cases. These are mainstream judgments happening in common law countries constantly. And the principle underneath all of them is the same. If you live like you're married, the law treats you like you're married. Your intentions don't matter. Your paperwork doesn't matter. What matters is the court's assessment of your behaviour, and that assessment happens after the fact when you're trying to leave and she's trying to take. Let me talk about asset intermingling, because this is the point of no return. When you live separately, asset division is simple. This is mine. That is yours. Clear boundaries. No confusion. Even if you're in a relationship, the separation of households creates separation of assets. My bank account, your bank account, my property, your property. The moment you move in together, those boundaries blur. Maybe you have separate accounts at first, but you're splitting rent or splitting the mortgage payment. Maybe you take turns paying for groceries. Maybe you alternate who pays utilities. Maybe you buy furniture together. Maybe you gift her money to help with something. Maybe she makes improvements to your place. Each of these interactions is creating evidence. Evidence of shared finances, evidence of joint decision-making, evidence of economic interdependence. And here's what men don't understand. You can have all the legal protections in the world. You can have trusts. You can have corporations owning your property. You can have prenuptial-style agreements drafted by lawyers. None of it is bulletproof once you cohabitate. Because courts have what's called equitable jurisdiction, which means they can look past the paperwork to what they perceive as the real situation. If they think the paperwork was used to avoid fair outcomes, they can disregard it. I've seen cases where a man put his house in a trust before she moved in, thought he was protected, thought the trust created a legal barrier that she couldn't penetrate. Court said the trust was a sham designed to avoid relationship property obligations, pierced the trust, awarded her a portion anyway, his years of legal planning, his expense, his structure irrelevant. Because the court decided the substance of the relationship overrode the form of the asset protection. This is why asset intermingling is the point of no return. Once your lives are financially connected, once there's evidence of shared economic life, you're vulnerable. And that vulnerability can't be fixed retroactively. You can't unring the bell, you can't undo years of cohabitation, you can't erase the evidence that you functioned as a partnership. The damage is already done. Now you're just negotiating how much it costs. Let me talk about the she changed her mind problem, because this is where men's trust destroys them. Early in the relationship, she might say all the right things. I don't care about your money. I'm not like that. I would never go after your stuff. I have my own career. I don't believe in taking advantage of people. And she might mean it. Genuinely, in that moment, she might believe what she's saying. She might have integrity. She might have values. But people change. Circumstances change. Emotions change. When the relationship is good, she doesn't need your assets. When the relationship ends, especially if it ends badly, her position can shift, and the law allows that shift. The law doesn't hold people to what they said during the relationship. It assesses what's fair at the time of separation, and fair is determined by judges who often have very different views about fairness than you do. I've watched men get destroyed by women who explicitly promised they'd never do exactly what they ended up doing. Women who said they believed in equality, in fairness, in mutual respect. But when the relationship ended, those principles evaporated. They hired lawyers, they filed claims, they sought every dollar they could extract, not because they were evil, because the circumstances changed, because the relationship that protected you when she was happy became the weapon she used when she wasn't. And here's the brutal part. The courts don't care what she said before. They care about the legal structure of the relationship and what outcomes seem equitable now. If she stood in front of 10 witnesses and swore she'd never pursue your assets, that doesn't bind her legally. Verbal promises during a relationship aren't contracts. They're just words, and words don't hold up when lawyers get involved. Men trust. That's the vulnerability. Men believe that if someone loves them, they wouldn't hurt them. Men operate on the assumption that past behavior predicts future behavior. Men think that if she said she didn't care about money, that won't change. But love doesn't prevent lawsuits. Good memories don't prevent asset claims. History doesn't prevent her from reinterpreting the entire relationship as exploitation once she's consulting with a lawyer who's explaining how much she might be entitled to. Let me address the men who've already been through this once, because you're the most vulnerable. You already lost half your assets in a divorce, or more than half. You rebuilt. You were careful. You thought you learned the lesson. You're not getting married again. That's your boundary. You've seen what marriage costs and you're not doing it twice. So when you meet someone new, you're explicit. I'm not getting married. That's off the table. If you're looking for that, we're not compatible. She says she understands. She says she's fine with it. She says she's not interested in marriage either. She's been burned too. She values her independence. She's with you because she wants to be, not because of a legal contract. You feel safe. You feel like you found someone who gets it, someone who's on your page, so you move in together because you're not getting married. Moving in is different. Moving in is just practical. You're in a relationship, spending all your time together anyway. Makes sense to share a place. And besides, you're not signing anything. No marriage certificate, no vows, no legal contract. You're just roommates who sleep together. What could go wrong? Everything. Because common law marriage doesn't require a ceremony, it requires behaviour, and you just engaged in the exact behaviour that creates legal marriage. You're living together. You're functioning as a couple. You're economically interdependent. The fact that you explicitly avoided a wedding doesn't matter. You created a legally recognised relationship through your actions. And when it ends, you're facing the same property division, the same asset claims, the same financial devastation you faced in your divorce. Except this time, you didn't even get the wedding. The men I've seen go through this twice, they're never the same after. The first time, they can rationalise it. I made a mistake. I married the wrong person. I'll be smarter next time. The second time breaks something. Because they were smarter. They did everything right. They avoided marriage. They set boundaries. And they still got destroyed. Because they didn't understand that the boundary that matters isn't no marriage. It's no cohabitation. Let me talk about why men don't see this coming. Men aren't taught relationship risk management. They're taught to be romantic, to be trusting, to be open, to lead with their hearts. They're taught that thinking strategically about relationships is calculating, unmanly, and indicative of fear or previous damage. They're taught that real love means vulnerability, and vulnerability means not protecting yourself. Because protecting yourself means you don't fully trust. And not fully trusting means you don't fully love. This is insane, but it's the dominant narrative, and it leaves men completely unprepared for the legal and financial realities of modern relationships. They don't know what a de facto relationship is. They've never heard of common law marriage. They don't know their jurisdiction's rules about cohabitation. They don't know that certain behaviours create legal obligations. They stumble into massive legal exposure with the sophistication of children because nobody ever taught them that relationships are also contracts, that love doesn't exempt you from law, that good intentions don't protect your assets. Meanwhile, women are taught to be strategic. Maybe not explicitly, maybe not in those words, but the information is available to them. The books exist, the forums exist, the lawyers advertise to them, the system is designed to educate them about their rights and entitlements, so they enter relationships informed while men enter blind. And informed parties always have advantage over uninformed parties. Always. Let me address the asymmetric risk-reward of cohabitation. What do you gain by moving in together? Convenience, slightly lower expenses if you're splitting costs, more time together, though you were already spending most nights together anyway, emotional comfort, the feeling of building something. These are real benefits. I'm not dismissing them, but they're temporary. They last as long as the relationship lasts. What do you risk? Financial devastation if the relationship ends. Loss of property you owned before she arrived. Ongoing support obligations that can last years. Legal fees that can run into 6 figures if she fights. The destruction of wealth you spent decades building. And all of this is permanent. Even after she's gone, the consequences remain. You're paying for the relationship long after the relationship has ended. Risk-reward analysis is simple. Temporary emotional benefit versus permanent financial exposure. Convenience today versus potential catastrophe tomorrow. Feeling closer now versus being significantly poorer later. When you lay it out clearly, the math doesn't work. The upside is minor and short-term. The downside is major and long-term. This is a bad bet. Not because cohabitation always ends badly, but because when it does end badly, the cost is so enormous that it outweighs the benefits, even if there's only a 30% chance of disaster, and the 30% is conservative. Relationship satisfaction statistically declines over time. The majority of live-in relationships that don't end in marriage end in separation. Of those that do end in marriage, a significant percentage end in divorce. You're rolling dice where the odds are not in your favour and the cost of losing is devastating. This is not how rational people make decisions. This is gambling with your future based on feelings. So what should you do instead? Maintain separate residences. I know this seems extreme. I know it seems unromantic. I know she'll probably push back. Don't you want to live together? Don't you see a future with me? Are you not committed? These are emotional arguments designed to make you question yourself. Don't. Living separately doesn't mean you're not committed. It means you're not legally exposed. You can be in a deeply committed relationship, spend 6 nights a week together, travel together, build a life together, all while maintaining separate legal residences. She sleeps at your place sometimes. You sleep at her place sometimes, but officially, independently, you have separate addresses, separate leases or mortgages, separate bills, separate lives that overlap by choice, not by legal obligation. This does several things.